as a financial advisor, one of the saddest situations I have to deal with is when I meet somebody new that was very, very close to being able to retire, and unfortunately they made an avoidable mistake that destroyed their dreams, and now they have to work years longer unnecessarily. I don't want to see that happen to you. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you the 8 most common mistakes I see people make that can derail their retirement. And the first one is not test driving their retirement before they make the leap. And there's a financial side to this, and then there's also a life side of it. It's a quality of life side. Let's start with the financial side. It's super important to test drive your retirement budget before you retire. To the extent that you can. I realize if you're planning to downsize your house or you're planning to relocate, you might not be able to do all of those pieces. But if you're planning to go from spending $10,000 a month to $8,000 a month, give it a try first. Emulate what you can and see what that feels like, because some people will say, you know what, I need more money than that. Or other people will say, this was very comfortable. In fact, I could do fine with less. And there's no right or wrong. It's just what feels right for you. But before you pull the trigger and tell your boss you're going to retire, test drive that budget. The other thing I want you to test drive is your life after work. For many of us, we've been working 20, 30, 40 years, and a large part of our identity is tied into our work. And if that's you, and mea culpa, I fall into that category as well, it's important to test drive some other things. What's your new passion going to be? So that's number one, test drive retirement. Number two is your asset allocation. And sometimes I see people that take too risky of an asset allocation. And as we get closer to retirement, we don't have as much time until we need to withdraw some of that money. Now, you likely, if you're in good health, you still have a long time horizon, so that's in your favor, right? Hopefully you have 30 years of retirement, plus 30 years plus, so that's a long period of time. But one of the things that does change in retirement is how market corrections feel to us. A 20% correction, when it's your nest egg and you're no longer putting money into your account, feels very different than a 20% correction when you're still adding money to your account. You're still making money, and in fact, you can benefit from a market downturn by buying equity stocks at lower prices. Once we've retired, now we're on the other side of that, right? When you were working and buying at lower prices, somebody else was selling at lower prices. And some of those people are retirees that need the capital. So understanding that your asset allocation needs to change as you start withdrawing money. The other thing is the way risk feels is going to feel differently. It's going to feel tougher. The joy of gain is going to be dwarfed by the pain of correction. So just be aware of that. I don't want to see you become what I call a forced seller in a down market. Okay, number 3 is having money, having been able to build up your accounts and done the hard part of saving and investing wisely. But if all your money's in your company 401k or a regular IRA, and let's say you're 55, and but for that you could retire, but you don't want to pay the 10% penalty for early withdrawal if all your money's in regular 401ks or a regular IRA. So the mistake is not thinking about liquidity as you get closer to retirement and having buckets. I call them buckets. A regular IRA, a regular 401k, which is the most common, and then also a Roth version of those, a Roth 401k and a Roth IRA. So the regular is tax me later, and the Roth version of it is tax me at the beginning but never tax me again. And then preferably a third bucket, which is just a taxable account in your local bank account or a taxable brokerage account. So having those 3 buckets, if you find yourself in the fortunate situation that you can retire early, gives you the freedom to actually do it because you've got the liquidity. Okay, number 4 is delaying retirement because of concerns over health care insurance. Now, if if you're before Medicare age, 65 in the United States for most of us, if you're before that but you can afford to retire, some people say, I'm not going to, in fact, a lot of people say, I'm not going to retire because what am I going to do about health care insurance? Well, let's talk about this. You're absolutely correct to be concerned with it and to be worried about it. But there are solutions. Most of us know about COBRA, which means our employer, we can get our health care insurance through our employer for 18 months, up to 18 months, in some cases up to 36 months. So that's an option for some people, and it may bridge that gap. But if you're retiring even earlier than that, you may qualify for, in fact, many people do qualify for a subsidy through the Affordable Care Act. And a good place to look for information on what an Affordable Care Act policy would cost in your state is put together by the Kaiser Family Foundation, KFF, Kaiser Family Foundation, so kff.org. And if you Google kff.org, ACA calculator, you can see what would it cost you to get health care insurance. And many people are surprised at it can be much more reasonable, your cost after the subsidy, than what people are thinking. So yes, be concerned about health care insurance, but do some research and see what solutions you might have available to you. Another big mistake I see, this doesn't derail retirement, but it diminishes the joy of retirement. And that is starting retirement off too slowly. So you kind of dip your toes into retirement and you're super cautious on your spending. And I'm a fan of being cautious on spending, right? I mean, most of us are watching videos like this because we're good savers. And it's a big transition from saving to spending. But I hear a lot, it's a very common regret that people in their 70s, late 60s, early 80s have, is they wish they had spent more money early in retirement when they still had their full health, their mental acuity, they didn't have a cancer diagnosis, they hadn't had a heart attack yet, things like that. So don't wait. Once you retire, make those first couple years count. Unfortunately, most of us, by the time we're 60, have less than 1,000 weeks of healthy, active time remaining. And those early years are the golden years. They're the youth of your senior years, and take full advantage of them. Okay, number 6, kind of related to spending, is if you find yourself spending more than planned. Let's say you hired a financial advisor, which I think you should, but you're spending more than planned. In my example earlier, somebody's making spending $10,000 a month before retirement. They retire and they say they're going to spend $8,000 a month. Well, if they find themselves spending $10,000 a month, if you do that once, is that going to impact your long-term results? Probably not. But if you do that every month, you'd be surprised. $500 a month, $1,000 a month above plan can have a difference. So if you're finding yourself consistently doing that, update your plan. Just make sure you're okay. You don't want to unnecessarily sacrifice and not spend money that you could otherwise spend, but conversely, you also don't want to put your future at risk as well, your future financial health at risk. Okay, the number 7 mistake I see people make is not thinking about taxes enough, and frankly, doing it themselves. Taxes is something in retirement, for many of us, we're getting a W-2 form from our employer. There wasn't a lot we could do to control our tax rate, but once we're retired, we do have a lot more control. And for the average person, they're going to save thousands of dollars by being deliberate and strategic about which accounts they take money out of. If you have a regular 401k, a Roth 401k, or a Roth IRA, and a taxable account, thinking through which accounts you're going to take can save the average person lots of money and probably dwarf any fee that you'd have to pay an accountant or a financial advisor. Here in the United States, there's 7 tax brackets. There's the 10%, there's the 12%, and then you jump up to 22 and 24%. There is no 14% tax bracket, 16, 18, 10%, 12%, and then it jumps. So the opportunity lies in being able to get the money out at the 10 and 12% rate. And then the last one, kind of related to this, is not getting professional advice. I shared how with taxes, professional advice can save you a lot of money. It's the same thing with how your money's allocated, what your asset allocation is, having a plan. So I think many people are being penny wise and pound foolish by not engaging an advisor at least to double check things. And the other thing that I see people make is not being thoughtful and deliberate about when they choose to retire. And that's why I made this video up here, which is talking about when you should retire and why waiting until 65 might be a mistake. Thanks for watching this one. I'll see you in the next one.